We've got more sort of announcement kind of things. After we talked last week about making the switch to going bi-weekly, I basically wanted a 1 week follow-up for this week so we could get on the same schedule as Commissioner Caswell's calls. So if we have things to fill the agenda today, great. If we don't, it can be a pretty quick call, but I think at least Robin has some follow-up discussion on the first item. The past couple calls with Commissioner Caswell have been focused on the $100 million related to housing programs that the governor announced. And so we've gotten a little bit of information about, for example, what the municipal technical assistance stuff might look like, what the access to some of the project funding that they talked about might look like in terms of needing multifamily housing, which they are defining as 5 units or more, and essentially accessing based on a formula of how many units you're putting into that project. So yeah, I'm probably not the best person to give an overview for people who weren't in on that, but I think if there are questions or follow-ups, maybe that's just something we can work in as we go. So Robin, do you want to kick us off?
I'm confused, and if everyone else is confused, know that I did make a follow-up to Lorna, because the one aspect of this that I don't understand is that to what extent does this project have to be in process versus a concept, or can it be something that has been discussed and intellectually planned for with a group of stakeholders and partners, but has not been initiated yet? So that was my primary question, because George Regan, I don't know if George is on this call or not. I immediately shot an email to George Regan and asked him that question. And he said, get in touch with all of your developers and your investors and let them know about this now. And then I talked internally to those who are in the know here, and they felt it was really important not to get in touch with developers and investors, because we don't know yet to what extent does this have to be in process. And then my impression was on the phone call yesterday that this had to be intangible process, the plans proposed or already begun. And so I'm just wondering, does this have to be in process in terms of the city's perspective, in that a plan has been proposed, city partners, developers, and architects and engineers are already working on it? Or can it be in process from my perspective as economic development, that I'm working with these people that have this concept that they would like to move forward, but are looking to fine tune their funding for, and so forth? And then how does that approve for, thank you, Mikkel. I was pinging Mikkel like crazy yesterday too. And thank you for that, Mikkel, because I know I did write an email to Lorna, because everyone was a little gray, or they were very clear on different answers. So you get what I'm saying.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
I do. We should think about this as gap financing. So
I think the short answer is it depends on which program you're talking about, because they have a pool of funding for planning dollars that is sort of the parallel. He keeps calling it basically a continuation of the municipal technical assistance program or grants in terms of being able to plan or pay for plans, studies, your policy audit kind of things. That's upfront. Municipalities are going to be accessing that money, probably not private organizations. The demolition funding that, again, is not a central part. I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but that would be sort of in between somebody's ready for an implementation kind of idea and needs to take a building down to save costs, versus the gap financing. We have housing projects that we are trying to, get implemented quickly, easily, painlessly.
In my world versus yours, because I'm not technical, what does that mean, ready to start? I don't, I'm
So
just, you know what I mean?
I think they are thinking funding support for projects that have already gotten permits, especially site plan review, because they're talking about the amount of time that the local permit took being a measure of eligibility. I don't think they've announced, officially what that is going to look like, but it sounded like, anybody who had already gotten conditional site plan approval was somebody who could start to think about accessing that money.
So to me, these are in fact plans that are in process. These are not my developers and investors who have ideas to hope to do this.
Yeah,
2022.
It's not. I am talking to somebody about a purchase option on
Exactly.
a property that I'll design and come in for permits next year. I'm already in process and in permits.
Okay, so then that means no.
But have not necessarily gotten my building permit or broken ground.
Gotcha. So that would translate to no email and communication to developers and investors, because these are the people who would be in fact in process. And then two kind of sidebar, Taylor specifically, I think I noted 3 times, asked for ways to shape what those experiences are with those individuals to provide information back so he could modify the grant specifically around what we are working with. But so my takeaway from this, and I'll keep you posted of what I hear throughout the day, Mikkel and Lorna too. But my takeaway is it is in fact the ones that will qualify for this grant and funding are the ones who are in tangible process versus abstract process. It's not my developer who has this idea to do the plaza or the prison, the jail, the police station.
So it's post concept.
It's post concept, and
Okay.
it's in okay.
And I think some of that depends on how long the money lasts.
Okay.
But conceivably, if somebody was coming in for their initial city permits, their site plan review in the next couple of months, and you met this type of eligibility he's talking about, review and approval, conditional approval within 6 months kind of thing, that might be, they might get through in time.
Gotcha.
But I wouldn't think, or at least if I were somebody who was coming in with plans that I was going to file, in the fall or next spring, I wouldn't count on there still being money left. Would be my knee-jerk read.
Yeah, Robin, I did hear him say when he was talking about the gap financing that this was for projects that were already kind of in the pipeline that maybe just needed a final push to get it.
I missed that read.
To get it pushed, to get it to completion so that we would have housing.
Okay.
It was kind of a push. It was something that could get some of these projects pushed through the pipeline. That was the impression that I was getting.
You got, okay, gosh, thanks. Yeah, like I say, and I'm sure we're all in the same boat. I have at least 3 or 4 developers / investors who have this vision for this development concept, but it is a vision. And I think I'm hot on this. I met one in a bar on Thursday night. You all know him. We ended up talking for 3 hours, and he knows exactly what he wants to do, but he has not. That's it. He knows what he wants to do. I've got like 3 of those, but there's nothing that's been submitted to City Hall for some technical process.
What is he waiting for, if I could ask?
Well, he's waiting for his workload. So for example, this is one example. This particular guy specifically asked for me to talk to him again December 1st when he's finishing this other project. And then I'm thinking of 2 others that are kind of investor developers, but nothing has been submitted to City Hall, although they're very clear on their vision. So I wasn't sure what Taylor was talking about, but I misread what you just offered, and that would make sense to me. I just, like I said, I didn't want to do a broadcast email to investors and developers and say, by the way, folks, we love you and here's what we got now, if in fact they can't apply. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
understood.
Robert, I can help out with this a little bit. The reason they're doing it this way is they have to get the money pushed out by 2024. So that's why there's a push to have projects that are already in the pipeline.
Yeah.
And so I think I wouldn't reach out to anybody until after tomorrow, because it's going to be executive council tomorrow and it could change.
Yeah, good
So I
point.
wouldn't reach out to anybody until actually Taylor and his team has already put together the applications. We know exactly what we don't want to be ambiguous to our developers, and we don't want to get them excited when they won't qualify.
Yeah,
Tom Monahan did call Taylor and set up a call with Taylor, and he talked to him yesterday. And Tom described the project, and Taylor said that fits it like a glove.
wow. Well,
Yeah.
and 2, then I'm going to call New Hampshire Housing, George Regan, because he and I communicated yesterday, and he was all about let your developers, let your investors know now. And I know, you know, he has he's kind of not a different box, but he has a particular box of interest and passion and connectivity, if you will. But again, that's sending out a broadcast email that looks personal, especially to these 3 or 4 that are highly invested in Somersworth. I just
keep
didn't
in
want to
mind,
make.
I would say pick your best project, because I would be surprised, because it's not a lot of money. He was talking about 10,000 a unit. I don't know if that's what it's going to end up at, but I bet you don't get more than 1. So I'd pick your best one.
Yeah, and I think it does
Thank
make
you.
sense this close to executive council approval, you know, to pump the brakes a little bit and wait for something official. For developers, yeah, I don't know that it necessarily, when everything comes out, I still think we would probably want to communicate, you know, what the programs are and how they're accessed, even if it isn't necessarily trying to gin up, you know, new interest, because they're still going to want to know. They're going to want to know, okay, this isn't for the new things. These are for the things I already have in progress. But for some of them, that doesn't necessarily mean they can't benefit, because they do a lot of these developers that have multiple projects. They're basically doing the same type of project. They're just at various stages. So maybe that means instead of, you know, being able to benefit for the project they have in mind for December 22, they go, oh, okay, I need to think about how this fits with the project that I'm currently building in, you know, that I'm planning to break ground in May of 22.
Don't forget, there's the money that can go to the communities as well. We're planning on putting in infrastructure, widening a road for the project that will be applying for the private side. And so if we put this infrastructure in, it'll help, you know, basically a quarter mile of businesses that are going to benefit from it, even though they're not getting the money directly from the state, but they're certainly going to benefit from the infrastructure we put in there.
Yeah, good
And
point.
I think it was sort of alluded to as one of the many reasons to do this, but the way the program that would go direct for that gap financing makes the most sense to me is something like, I had site plan approval for this project before or early stages of the pandemic, and economy shifted. I pumped the brakes on it. It was on hold for a little bit. And now I need to figure out the changing and rising costs of this project. Materials are more expensive, labor is more expensive, and a lot of these things got crunched. And so I don't think it's necessarily, hey, we're paying for a bunch of new housing. I think in practice, this is likely to be a lot of bringing projects back to par, so that, you know, the pro forma that was put together pre, you know, pandemic and war in Ukraine inflation can still pencil out.
Interesting. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. And then in the planner world, out of curiosity, does a letter go out to all of the planners from someone that, I mean, how is all this being communicated? I guess, Mikkel, that's kind of a BEA question too, right? So as soon as the vote,
Yes.
as soon as the vote happens, then I send an email to the director of planning and
Right now, I get all of my information more or less the same way you do.
what, a bar in Portsmouth? What are you saying, James?
No,
I don't understand.
I mean, yeah, I
I'm
think
kidding.
I'm on the same email lists and notifications that you are. I don't necessarily think there's a secret planner network where this just sort of all pops up on our computers either. It's just going to be paying attention to the same networks, and I'm sure New Hampshire Planners Association will be trying to keep tabs on things. I'm sure the OPD folks will be learning to try, or will be looking to try and get stuff out, whether it's through PlanLink or setting up their monthly webinars or things like that. I think it's just keep an eye on your usual BEA channels, and we'll know more when we know more.
The bottom line is that the governor and BEA and others want this to be successful, utilized, and expended. So I suspect that we're going to hear about this from every channel under the sun, because as was stated earlier, the money needs to be spent within 2 years. So there's a real drive, I think, to make this a successful and good example of how government money can be used to benefit goals and objectives as opposed to just push them forward.
And Robin, you've been saying that you've been reaching out to George Reagan, so I guess that's one of your better connections to keep in touch with. Plan New Hampshire, the MTAG program is also going to be involved in this. And also to kind of just, repeat what James said, there's a tad bit of just pumping the brakes a little bit, because personnel and policies and procedures have to be in place in order to, distribute this money. So we're all kind of in a hurry up and wait mode. But, you seem to already have some good, connections in the housing world. So keep your thumb on the pulse of what they're going through.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. And you can tell, and I promise I'll stop talking. There are other things to talk about. I just worry so much about being asleep at the wheel. And here I'm in this isolated economic development manager department and planning and all those who are working through that technical process that I have nothing to do with. I just worry that they don't know. Plus, I'm the one working with the investors and developers who are going to ultimately be the ones that care about this, and who's informing them, So yeah, I'm not great at pumping the brakes, but I think it's great advice. I really do. But I think it's an incredible opportunity, and I don't want to miss letting everyone know, But thank you.
One thing I'll add, I was listening to the commissioner at the fiscal committee on Friday, and he had said that they're working on the rules and the application process to kind of flesh out the details for the beginning of June. So I think similar to what other folks said, I think in the next month or so, we should have a lot more specifics so that they can start taking in those applications.
Thank you for that.
And I guess for the BEA folks, the Planning Commission directors have a meeting once a month. All the executive directors get together. I think it's normally the second Thursday. As we get close, that would probably be a really good agenda to have Taylor or somebody else on, because I know we all do your weekly newsletters, bits and pieces, social media stuff. That could sort of be a one meeting with 9 people, gets an email out to just about every community in the state.
And if we have excuse me, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, but if we have a conversation that the director of planning should be pulled in, and other people who are the instruments for this technical process, then I'm going to bring them into the screen. Right now it's like, run out to this person, run out to that person, run out to the other person, so everyone knows, because we all, as you well know, everyone has different talents and different responsibilities as a result,
Yeah, we can certainly devote one of these agendas to that as well, and that
That'd be
would be a good
neat.
one for you to bring Michelle to, Chris, bring
Exactly.
Donna, et cetera, et cetera. Chris, you had something?
Well, I was just going to say, it seemed to me, and I'll be the curmudgeon for a second, that as soon as the Office of State Planning was eliminated, it feels like 20 years ago, and OEP and then OSI and this whole like machination, that the functionality and the value of that area of the governor's office was significantly diminished. And the conversations that I had as part of a group and individually with Taylor, it seems like he wants to reverse that. And so this initiative, what we're talking about now, seems like a really good opportunity to really show the value of that office in its rechristened role within BEA. And I suspect, based on his enthusiasm, meaning the commissioner's enthusiasm for it, that we're going to see that connectivity that Robin's talking about, that we've all see the need for. And James, I think it's a great idea. I mean, let's leave Sharples off it. No offense, Darren, but let's have those conversations. With
I like what you did there.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris. We've definitely had a lot of hats and a lot of name changes and things like that. There used to be, as you know, back in the day, many more planners at OPD, OSP, and OSI. When I was hired 4 years ago, it was the first time that they had been to full staff with 6 planners in several years. So the office, we have, huge responsibilities like everybody else with, diminished staff that's taken away and never replaced. And, well said about Taylor, because along with this money, there are positions that are supposed to be hired to assist us, as we are only 6 planners, trying to do our best to keep up with everything. But it is very true that our office has been diminished and the responsibilities have not been. So it's the enthusiasm is great across the board for everyone. And it just is a little bit frustrating that we want to get these things rolling, but there is a process and it's hard to wait. But Commissioner Caswell is pretty supportive of it and understands a lot of the issues that communities go through, and involving New Hampshire Housing and involving Plan New Hampshire with MTAG, that are programs that are already, not so much reinventing the wheel 100%, utilizing what we already have, utilizing the people that already work within those programs to further them. So, the scary part is I think we're going to run out of consultants in the state to help take care of all of this with the zoning rewrites and stuff. For every action, there's a reaction, right? So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like volunteers.
Yeah, I know Nita's coming. She asked me about that. So.
Anything else on this topic? All right, well, we're still sort of on housing. Nick, I'll throw it over to you. You've got an event coming up, right?
Yeah, thanks, James, and perfect segue. But folks, I wanted to invite everybody to an event we're doing at the beginning of May. So the Exeter Housing Advisory Committee, along with the Workforce Housing Coalition, the Greater Seacoast, and the Rockingham Planning Commission, are putting together a roundtable housing discussion. There'll be a lot of friendly faces from this call that are there. Chris, Darren, Sarah will be there. Commissioner Caswell will be speaking. So we're really hoping to have a really good discussion with stakeholders and folks in the community to talk about solutions, talk about areas that we can all work together and make some progress on this, answer questions, again, bounce these ideas around. So it's going to be Friday, May 6th at the Exeter Town Hall from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I know we attached the invite to the last email. We're just asking that folks RSVP so we can keep an option for how we track everybody that's coming in. So if you could shoot me an email, I'll drop my email into the chat right after this. And if folks would just let us know if they're coming. The remote question, we're not gonna stream it live at the same time. We are gonna have, well, I believe as of our last conversation, Exeter TV was gonna record it so that they were able to re-show it after the fact and have a virtual option. But the logistics of getting everything to have a live screening and the in-person screening were a little bit difficult in the town hall. So there should be recording, but it won't be at the same time on May 6th. But we'd love to see as many folks as possible there, and obviously everyone here is well versed in the issue, but would love to have you there.
Questions for Nick? All right, moving right along. The next one was mostly just an announcement. I'm not sure how many of you got an email about this program. I think mine came from Michelle Coda, but it was one that I hadn't really heard about before. So I thought I would throw it on the agenda just to put it on your radar. That's EDA doing an FY22 build to scale program that my understanding and reading through was looking mostly at sort of early stage kind of innovation hubs, things that are attached to related to university programs, and then a lot of sort of startup or spinning out of programs like that into early stage capitalization. So maybe mostly useful to the UNH folks, but I wanted to put it out there for everybody. And then the only other thing I had was just a reminder to everyone, we're going to take next week off. I'll probably be trying to carve out some time in that time to figure out what I need to do to the Zoom meetings and calendar invites to get us set up for bi-weekly. And then we'll be on an every other week schedule starting on May 3rd. So anybody have anything else you want to chat about this morning?
About how great that Celtics win was a couple days ago.
That and the combination of the yellow Sox jerseys, it was a good weekend.
All right, not hearing anything else. I don't think I'm a good fill-in for Sports Center, so I'll let you all go and check in on that somewhere else. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
See you
James.
in 2 weeks.